Coming up on Mount Hermeneutics, we, as the rest of the world, notice the latest in the Israel-Gaza conflict. Many are loud about their stance as they choose sides based on religion, politics, and ideology. But as Christians, is there a requirement that we take the side of Israel? We're going to talk about it. So keep it right here. You're listening to Mount Hermeneutics, where three Marines give their perspective on God, faith, and spirituality with a heavy lean on the divine council worldview. This is not your grandma's Sunday school, nor is it always for the Christian faint of heart. Nothing about who we are or what we say make us experts. But you better believe we'll have a take, and perhaps it won't suck.
I've never talked for 20 minutes straight.
He's got receipts, dog.
So Matt's wrong.
It 100%.
People who curl in the squat rack are you are the reason people don't believe in God.
Fellas, what's happening?
What's up, Dre?
Hey.
Just chilling. I'm Andre, and ready to kick the show. Brian, what's up?
Hey, Dre. Hey, Matt. I'm just living the dream, man. Just doing my usual thing.
Keep in mind that nightmares are also dreams.
That's I didn't want to get into it, but
okay. Well, yeah, man.
But you're right. You're very right.
Yeah,
Matt, how are you?
I'm good, man. I saw a meme about that actually the other day, and it says the best way to respond is to say, "The terror persists, but so do I."
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it.
It's one of those. Should I be worried about you or not worried about you?
I want to say that just to make it weird. If somebody asks me, "Hey, Brian, how are you?" I'm just going to look him dead in the eye, deadpan, with full conviction. The terror persists, but so do I.
And you got to have that little pregnant pause in between, right, to make it it persists. And they're like, "But so do I." And they're like,
"But the caesura," in there,
right?
And then just, "Hey, how are you guys?"
And, so how you been?
Anyway, yeah.
Like I didn't just say the weirdest thing ever.
Right? Anyway,
yeah.
Let's take a shot of whatever is on the shelf.
Right.
That guy needs it. That guy right there needs it.
Yes.
So I don't know if you guys have been watching the news or looking through any social media feed, but apparently there's something going on in Israel and Gaza.
There is.
Heard about that.
That's what I hear.
Is it a big deal?
Well, I mean, is it any bigger of a deal than it normally is?
Well, I mean, yeah, it probably is.
Yeah, it kind of is.
I started to try to be funny about it, but it's pretty serious. I mean, so I was all kidding aside. One of my partners that I work with, I'm essentially 1 degree of separation from current hostages, right? So he's got a handful of friends and family, not family direct, but like friends and family friends over there. And I knew that, so I checked in with him like last Thursday, and I was like, "Hey, man, like, what's up with your people?" And he was like, one of my buddies, his like brother and his wife are currently unaccounted for." And I was like, "Oh, that's not good."
That's on the Israel side.
Yeah. So it's kind of lousy over there. Yeah. So, I think, we kind of teased that we were going to talk about this because it's, the most compelling story to talk about right now. We're hopefully going to get into it a little bit differently. For anybody that might be heavily triggered on opinions and political stances, you might want to skip this show because we are going to have a little bit of a take here. It probably will be different than most others, so it might surprise you and you might want to hear what we have to say. But if you're just going to come to listen to get fired up and then tell us how we're wrong, I mean, good luck.
I invite that to you, whatever. Yeah, come on.
You were forewarned.
I'm not sure they won't get their fill of that just from the three of us. Just going at each other, but
that's also true. But I saw a meme that I thought I'd kick this conversation off with today, and it was a quote from George Orwell. I shared it on Facebook, but the quote is that all the war propaganda and all the screaming and lies and hatred comes invariably from people who are not fighting. I just it got me, right? It's always those that aren't don't have as much skin in the game that seem to have the biggest opinions, right? And this isn't about the folks in the Middle East. I'm talking about Americans and, and all the folks on social media and on the internets and all of that kind of thing, right? It's like,
I feel a little attacked.
Yeah.
Well,
it's just
put
one of
your
those
hands up,
things,
son.
right? Like, I mean, I not to
defend yourself at all times.
Not to water this down, but what that meme reminded me of was when the kneeling hullabaloo was going on with the NFL over the national anthem, right? And I kind of was watching the social media outrage, and I found it compelling or interesting that the people that were the most offended were family and friends of veterans or service members. It wasn't the service members or the veterans that seemed to have this bigger problem with the kneeling behavior, right? And it's kind of understandable, right? Like, people, you get into that tribalism and, your people, your kind, the people that you take up for, then when they're wronged, that's when you want to become the most rabid because you want to defend your son-in-law, your brother, your nephew, your spouse, right? And sometimes I wonder how much of that is what's going on with the responses to what we're seeing in the Middle East, right? On both sides, because we're obviously seeing a fair amount, so surprising, but fair amount of Americans, or at least people in America, maybe both, that are, pro-Palestinian in this scenario. And then a lot of people are, heavily pro-Israel.
You find that surprising?
That there's that many pro-Palestinian people in the U.S.? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do. If for no other reason than just the historical majority of Americans that have always been pro-Israel, right? And that kind of segues into how I thought we were going to, get into this show. And, I've always kind of believed that the main reason for all of that pro-Israeli opinion was kind of tied to a couple of key Bible verses, right? There's a couple of verses that say, I'll paraphrase, and Brian could probably give us the direct chapter and verse, but it's to the effect of, any nation that stands against Israel stands against me. I mean, is essentially what the verse says, right? And you go back to,
Are you talking about Genesis 12, where he tells Abraham, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you? And
then there's one, if I'm not mistaken, in the New Testament, like I think it's maybe a Revelation. There might be one there, but I want to say there's at least 3 verses off the top of my head from what I remember, and I didn't do any homework to look them up. Jamie could pull those up for us.
Yeah,
but the point is still, I've always felt that that's been a big driver behind kind of the American natural inclination. And then I think there's probably then some carryover that says, post World War II, there became a lot more of a I don't know what the right word is, but alignment with the Jewish plight after that, maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong.
I don't find it surprising at all. And I think it goes with our increasingly secular society and our aggression toward what is deemed colonialism, right? So a lot of occupation and people losing their land, and indigenous people. I think that there's lots of protests all throughout the Western nations on things of that matter. I mean, we even have people in Congress that are super pro-Palestinian, just on that front alone,
right?
Who will, it's really easy and quick to just call them anti-Semites because they have so many things they say against Israel. But then, when they're pressed on it, they're really not anti-Semitic. They're anti, occupation of Palestine.
Right. Yeah. Which I think drives a real question, and maybe something we could get into here tonight, is from a biblical point of view, what or who is Israel?
Well, I want to respond to some of what you guys said first.
Sorry.
Why wouldn't we support Israel? What would be the? I mean, you're making it sound like only people who are, like, they're basing their entire outlook on a couple of verses. Like, why wouldn't we support them?
not wanting to support them isn't the same as supporting, right? Like it's one of those double negative kind of things. You don't have to be anti-Israel to not be pro-Israel.
I'm not pro states other than my own, right? So I think that to say Israel's innocent in this is not a true statement. I think.
Well, define innocent, and what do you mean by this?
Yeah, Dre, define every word that you're going to say out loud.
You said a thing, and then what about Israel do you support?
Well, are you saying they're not innocent in this being the latest attack by Hamas? Or
no, that's not what that's I am saying that in a sense, but no, I don't condone the latest attack. But that doesn't mean that Israel didn't know something was coming, couldn't sense that something was coming, and are treating the Palestinians like absolute garbage.
That first thing's really interesting for me.
I don't think any of that.
It's a little convenient that the attack did happen.
I think, well, that's a conspiracy theory, and even if
you can say that if you want to, but I have a lot of, I will just say in my experience with intelligence, I'm not going to say that they. Come on, you have a music festival in that region, and you don't have it.
I'm more interested in what you mean by they're treating the Palestinians like garbage.
So you've heard the whole open air prison?
I've heard that, yeah.
Okay, so why do you think that it's not that?
Well, that's Palestinian territory.
Okay.
Let's go back. Let's go down to basics first. Does Israel have a right to exist?
I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know if they do. I don't, to be honest. I really don't know if they do.
I say yes, and the reason why I say they have a right to exist is because like every single inch of this planet, you fight for it, and then once you have it, you have to defend it. And in the last 75 years, has Israel fought for their land, and have they defended it successfully? And the answer to both of those questions is yes to me.
Well, first of all, there's never been such a place called as Palestine. There's never been a nation called Palestine. That wasn't even really an identity until the Romans called it that as an insult to the Jews. It's the Latinized version of Philistine. They named it after their ancient enemies who didn't exist anymore to blot out the name of Israel so that they would be forgotten. But the identity of a Palestinian that wasn't invented until modern times, largely as a propaganda term. If we can agree that Israel has a right to exist as a nation, I think everything else pretty much follows. If you live side by side with the people who have vowed your destruction, I mean, I think the burden is on anybody who is anti-Israel to explain, well, what are they supposed to do? What could satisfy the Palestinians apart from just laying down and dying? They don't treat the Palestinians like garbage. They protect themselves from people who have vowed to wipe them off the map. Fully 1/5 of the population of Israel are Arabs. They have 1/5 of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, is made up of Arabs. Arabs or Palestinians who are citizens of Israel have all the same rights as Israelis. They don't treat them like garbage. People who openly claim Palestinian identity and citizenship live in Palestinian controlled land. They're hostile to the nation. So I don't know what the Israelis are supposed to do. Every bit of aid and material for building infrastructure, the Hamas leadership of the Palestinians uses it to build underground bunkers so they can stage terror attacks. They fire rockets at Israel from Gaza and the West Bank. So, I mean, this idea that this is all because the Israelis are mistreating the Palestinians, I think that's nonsense. That's just not true. I'd like to know what you think the Israelis should do other than
Maybe it doesn't have to be the Israelis. Why can't it be the Arab nations that should do something? Look, to say,
are you asking that to me or to Dre?
No, I'm asking it as a response to your question, because this doesn't have to be a Israel-Palestine problem. The Palestinians as people have as much right to exist as do the Israelis.
No one has ever said otherwise.
I'm agreeing. Right. I'm making a simple statement, right? The problem is around land and territory. The UN, ostensibly us, made Israel, right? So we created a portion of this problem. Why the UN hasn't created a Palestine is the follow-on question that I have.
Well, they have. It's called Jordan.
Well, it's not Palestine though.
What would be the difference? What would
I'm pretty sure the name of the country matters to people that call themselves a people. I'm pretty sure they don't consider themselves Jordanians. They consider themselves Palestinians.
And a lot of them have dual citizenship,
just like the Kurds, Jordan. Just like the Kurds in Iraq, but right?
Okay,
they don't want to be Iraqis. They want to be Kurds.
Have you guys studied any of the modern history of the land?
I feel like you're moving on without addressing my point.
I'm speaking directly to your point,
right? But my point is this, that this is, everyone turns this into a zero-sum game between two parties when it's not.
I don't think everyone does that.
Well, I think
the Palestinians do that.
The average conversation turns into it's us versus them, meaning the Israelis and the Palestinians. And my point is, if the people really just wanted a land to exist in, any of the other Arab nations could give them a chunk of land to exist in and call it Palestine. And yet none of them are doing that.
Yeah, that's you raise an interesting point. Yeah.
Right.
Even when you look at the blockades of the Gaza Strip, I mean, part of that blockade is Egypt, right? Because they don't want all these refugees pouring into their country.
Right. It's no different than Mexico blocking the Hondurans and the Guatemalans from going to Mexico.
And at the same time, 50 years ago, they actually did help them and lost, right? So didn't Egypt and Palestine and Jordan all gang up and like I said, this country defended it
several times,
defended itself.
And that's the point that I was trying to make is to ask a question like, doesn't Israel deserve to exist? Yeah, but so does Palestine.
Yeah,
the problem is everybody has a right to exist if we're talking about basic human existence, right?
Yeah, but the Palestinians have rejected a two-state solution over and over and over again.
I understand that, but should they be blockaded from getting simple things like water?
Who is responsible to give them water?
I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, their elected leadership, which is Hamas, would be chiefly responsible for that. Every penny that is sent, that is given to them in aid, every bag of concrete, every length of pipe, they, instead of building infrastructure and providing for their people, they turn it into rocket launchers and bunkers. One commentator summed it up best. If the Palestinians laid down arms and decided to coexist today, there would be peace tomorrow. If the Israelis laid down arms today, they would be annihilated tomorrow. The problem is that one side has vowed the destruction of the other and will accept zero compromise. And history has proven this. In every single treaty that they've broken and every single land for peace deal, any stretch of land they're given, they use to stage rocket attacks and terrorist attacks, and because they will not accept anything other than wiping Israel off the map. It's because of Islam. Islam is one of their favorite trophies of conquest is Jerusalem. Their narrative has it that the Jews were God's chosen people. He rejected him, and now the Muslims are God's chosen people. Taking the promised land was a huge feather in their cap, and it's a humiliation to Islam to give it up. And that's why all of the 20 or so other Arab nations in the region, they won't accept Palestinian refugees. They won't create a Palestinian state in their own land. because they want to keep the conflict going. That's why the majority of Muslim nations prior to the Abraham Accords wouldn't even recognize Israel's right to exist. People keep saying things like Israel's not innocent. Sure, they're not. I don't know why perfect innocence is a standard.
I didn't say that. In fact, you cut me off when I started the train that I was going down, which I don't even remember what it was now, because you stopped right there and asked that question. But I never said there had to be perfect innocence. I'm saying that in any conflict and in any relationship, there is something that you have to own, whether you're 10% wrong, 2% wrong, or 100% wrong, which is never 100%. You have to own that, and I don't think that Israel does.
Okay, what should they do that they haven't done that would satisfy you that they have?
What should they do? Would satisfy me? First of all, I'm not the fucking dude that needs to be satisfied.
Well,
here,
but you're saying
right?
it. You're saying
I am saying that there is things that are on the ground and people with firsthand knowledge that have told me, because they've been there, that Israel does not treat them right. So when they're going through blockades, they are treated as secondhand citizens. They are racist against them. There are Israeli cops and whatnot raping those people. There are people that are killed. There are hundreds of children that are injured all the time on the Gaza Strip. Now, do they bring some of that upon themselves because they voted for Hamas and Hamas launches rockets? Sure. But you can't just bomb a place or even give notice to a place and say, hey, you need to get out of this area. Well, where are they going to go? And then as they're leaving on the street, bombs hit cars that are rolling out. There's collateral damage, and then there's this.
Okay.
So you can't just say because politically Israel has a right to do this or that they're not wrong, and they're not shifting on their collateral damage, and they're just causing harm. And then as that grows, that continues those people to keep hating them. There's you have to be bigger. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
It's weird because, like, talking about these coexisting multicultural environments, right? Like, I mean, sure. I've been to India. I don't know if you guys, Dre, you've been to India.
I've been to India, yes.
Yeah. And I was in southern India, and it was really weird because the Muslims and the Hindi do not get along. Right. Like, at a level that I didn't even know could exist in the same country.
There's islands in the Philippines that are the same way where I was at.
Yeah. And they like, I walked up on it was a Hindi temple, and it had like these ropes around it. And I'm like, I asked my guys I was with, I was like, what are those ropes for? And they said, Muslims aren't allowed to go past those ropes. And I was like, what? That's the wildest thing I've ever heard of. And they go, yeah, because they'll get into fights and this and that. And the same at the Muslim mosques, like they have like visual barriers, and Hindis aren't allowed past those barriers. As an American, we're allowed to pass those if we're, because we're not the other team, right? Like we don't wear a colored jersey in India the way, red and blue or whatever the Hindi and Muslim colors are. But I just found that stunningly wild.
There seems to be a common denominator here.
Well, I'm not going down. I hear you, and I'm not going down that path. But it was interesting, right? And
I'll go down interesting. The problem is Islam. That's the problem.
It could be. I mean, I don't think Hindus are known to be like the most violent people on planet Earth. But it was odd that, you have these two different sects of people that have that little bit of ability to coexist. So I can only imagine in the Middle East. I was in the Southeast, so a little bit to the west, that right. The problem gets just as bad or worse. I just saw a video a little while ago on my phone. I was flipping. I don't know how it got into my feed, but it was. I wish I'd saved it. It was some guy was preaching Christianity somewhere in Israel, and he was being accosted by an Israeli who was telling him that the Torah says that they should kill Christians because they're idol worshipers. And there were police there, IDF there, like keeping them separated. And I've never heard of or seen evidence of Israelis being openly hostile to Christians like that. But that was pretty shocking. So I guess the point of saying that is, and the guy, you know, is that it's not necessarily all one-sided. Was that an outlier? I don't know. I don't have any kind of statistical.
The Israelis are not terribly friendly to Christianity. I spent 2 months in Israel in 1999. Most of the people I met were actually Palestinians. I met a few Jews, but I told you guys a story about when I went to the Jewish yeshiva and I had the debate over whether Jesus was the Messiah. Mm-hmm. I was told leaving that by my Jewish friend at the yeshiva that I don't know how he was. I think he was being a little dramatic, but warned me that this was in the Jewish quarter. It was the yeshiva was across the plaza from the Western Wall. Anyway, he told me that Christian missionaries, which I wasn't a missionary, I was mostly a tourist, but in their eyes, I was a missionary because I was a Christian. They were talking about Jesus. Said they're not very friendly to us, so be careful going home that night. And but nothing ever happened. But yeah. And I heard stories like that, but it seemed like Christians with persecution complexes were over dramatizing. So I don't know.
I like to take people at their words, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, sure. I watched
just like if you were in places in Los Angeles and somebody say, "Hey, we don't take kindly to people that look like you walking around this area," and then something doesn't happen to you because there are lots of not so safe places, and you know you have a chance of surviving through there. Doesn't mean that it doesn't happen, right?
Yeah, I don't totally blow it off, but I also recognize that it's exciting and dramatic to be a Christian in Israel talking about being persecuted for Christ. And
it doesn't seem exciting to me. I think we have different ideas of exciting.
Excitement.
Well, it
sounds lousy, no good.
Not that I wanted to be persecuted, but yeah, it seemed like they were punching up the drama for.
I think I put that just below being a prisoner of war.
Yeah,
just below, huh?
Mm-hmm. If I was persecuted for being,
I would rather be a POW because I get a medal.
I would brag about it. You would hear no end of it. Like about the time I went to Israel and I got these scars from.
I fully believe you. I fully believe you.
Insufferable whole persecution. I get it.
Just imagine anytime we get to an argument with Brian, Brian's like, "Oh yeah, do you have any scars for Jesus? Because I do."
I just do reps for Jesus. That's it. Do one more pull up. I guess Jesus don't get his today. Huh?
Yeah. So let's change gears a little bit. So first of all, I found this funny because Brian, so those that don't know, in our pre-production meeting, Brian made a big point that he didn't want to get into the politics of this because this has been litigated so many times over, and here we are. But no, the more pressing question that I think is relevant is, and I don't want to get into define victim and define innocent and all that crap.
Sure,
that's just a game, right?
And that's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, and we could spend hundreds of hours in that because obviously many others have. So here's the question. I said it earlier. I'm going to restate it. Who are Israel? What is Israel today, biblically speaking, not geographically and geopolitically speaking? So, like, I've read some things that say that, the people of Israel were the first Israel, and then after the second temple and something else, then Christians became the new Israel. And, Zion is not a physical place, but it's a conceptual thing.
It's in Utah.
Then there's the Mormons.
Right. There's a whole mountain named Zion, for crying out loud. There's a national park there.
Our friends of the latter day that believe that it's in Utah. Like, I mean, like who are God's people? Who is Israel? Like what's how do you read that? How do you parse that?
So you're talking about replacement theology.
Sure.
The idea that the church has replaced Israel.
Right.
First off,
or has it, right? And then more importantly, whether or not it has, like, so I guess the follow-on to that would be, let's say there is no replacement theology and Christians are not the new Israel. Are non-believers in Christ that are Israeli God's people? Question mark.
See, I don't think this is even, I mean, I understand there is a debate. I don't say this as if to push back against you. But I don't think biblically this is even debatable. I mean, can I
That's an interesting response. Could you not just answer the question then? I mean, you could expand on it. The answer? You could expand on it, but answer it.
The Jews are Israel. The Jewish nation, they're still God's chosen people. The church has been added to the Commonwealth of Israel. The church does not replace Israel. The church has replaced Israel in the sense of our current role in history, but Paul was pretty explicit that Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of Gentiles comes in, and then they will.
I think I read that somewhere, but that's actually tied to replacement theory. Like there's like the three phases, right? So phase one was early Israel, then phase two was Christians, and then in phase three is it reverts back to Israel after that thing that you just said, the full number of Christians or whatever. Like that was what I was reading a couple of days ago. So it's like a 3-part series on.
Yeah. Let me read something. And I think this should be, I think this should be the starting point of all discussions about this. This is from Jeremiah 31. The epistle to the Hebrews, he elaborates on this quite a bit. It reads, "The days are coming, declares the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the people of Israel and with the people of Judah. It will not be like the covenant I made with their ancestors when I took them by the hand to lead them out of Egypt, because they broke my covenant, though I was a husband to them, declares the Lord. This is the covenant that I will make with the people of Israel after that time, declares the Lord. I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts. I will be their God, and they will be my people. No longer will they teach their neighbor or say to one another, know the Lord, because they will all know me, from the least of them to the greatest, declares the Lord. For I will forgive their wickedness and will remember their sins no more." That's essentially the covenant that Jesus accomplished through his death and resurrection, that people claim replace the covenant of. It does replace the covenant of Moses, but it does not replace Israel as God's chosen people, because Jeremiah goes on to say, "This is what the Lord says. He who appoints the sun to shine by day, who decrees the moon and stars to shine by night, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar, the Lord Almighty is his name. Only if these decrees vanish from my sight, declares the Lord, will Israel ever cease being a nation before me. This is what the Lord says. Only if the heavens above can be measured and the foundations of the earth below be searched out, will I reject all the descendants of Israel because of all they have done, declares the Lord." So that pretty emphatically declares Israel will never cease being a nation before the Lord. Now, replacement theologians would argue that, but if the church is redefined as Israel, well, then that keeps the covenant. I think that's specious. That's swapping them out for a different people is not retaining them as a nation.
No, it's not. It's not. And so I get that point, but the follow on to that is so what value is God's continuance of identification of Israel as his chosen people if they refuse to follow him?
And in Romans 9-11, I think it's a lot to unpackage here in a podcast, but I would recommend everybody just read through that if you're curious about this question. But Paul makes it clear that, like, Calvinists love this they selectively love verses from that, but they reading it on its own terms, it pretty much precludes Israel being permanently replaced. he starts off basically addressing the question of, well, if they're God's chosen people, why have they rejected the Messiah? Does that mean God has rejected them? And he makes his points about election, about how being elected to fulfill the role in history that Israel was elected to fulfill, that's not the same as salvation. But God is sovereign. But he kind of establishes that God's prerogative in choosing, his sovereignty over human events, as kind of the broader principle. But within that, he boils it down to the Gentiles are saved because they have faith in Israel, and the Jews are not because they don't have faith.
Right.
They have a zeal without knowledge.
Right.
But he makes it clear that they are the natural olive tree. Gentiles have been grafted in as wild olive shoots. And if the Jews don't persist in unbelief, they too can be grafted back in. And then he ends with hold on a second.
Right, but that part's telling. Grafted back in. You have to be out to be grafted back in.
Sure, yeah.
So that actually argues in favor of the transference of that the people that the concept of Israel is simply the people that believe in and follow God writ large, which would include Christ, and those that don't are no longer part of Israel, irrespective of the country they were born in or the mother they were born unto,
or irrespective of the country they live in today.
Right.
Because some UN put it together and stuck it there. Except what?
Well, Paul makes it clear that God's gifts and his call are irrevocable. I asked then, did God reject his people? By no means. I am an Israelite myself, a descendant of Abraham from the tribe of Benjamin. God did not reject his people whom he foreknew. But he concludes with, hold on.
That's pretty circular then.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you read the whole thing, he makes it pretty clear, but he ends with, I do not want you to be ignorant of this mystery, brothers, so that you may not be conceited. Israel has experienced a hardening in part until the full number of the Gentiles has come in. And in this way, all Israel will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come from Zion. He will turn godlessness away from Jacob. And this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins. As far as the gospel is concerned, they are enemies for your sake. But as far as election is concerned, they are loved on account of the patriarchs. For God's gifts and his call are irrevocable. Just as you were at that one time disobedient to God, have now received mercy as a result of their disobedience, so they too have now become disobedient in order that they too may now receive mercy as a result of God's mercy to you. He ends talking about the depth and the riches and the wisdom and knowledge of God, how unsearchable his judgments and his paths beyond tracing out. Basically, there are mysteries here about God's plan, but Paul is clear that there's still a distinction between Israel as a people and the church. There's some overlap.
Yeah.
People, Israelites, Jews can be members of the church. But Israelites who are not members of the church, they're still Israelites. God still has a plan for them as a people. And you see this in the book of Revelation, where you see the 144,000 sealed, 12,000 each from the 12 tribes of Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And then in contrast, you have the great multitude in white robes who are from the nations. So there's still a distinction being made in the end times. And now the thing about replacement theology is, for the past 2,000 years, for most of it, is the idea of Israel ever being a nation again was totally unthinkable to most people. As we know, Jerusalem was destroyed in the year 70, the temple with it. They were scattered. And then there was another revolt in the early 2nd century in which they were all exiled from the land and scattered throughout the world. And so basically, just nobody ever dreamed there would be a national Israel again.
The second one was the Saracens, right?
The
whole deal with Saracens and
no, the Bar Kokhba revolt was the second one, and then they turned Jerusalem into Aeolina Capitolina, and built a temple to Jupiter on the Temple Mount to defile it.
Yikes.
Yeah, it's a kind of a dick move. But so you've got commentators and clergy and scholars reading the Bible and reading end times prophecy and seeing how it involves national Israel. And clearly that can't happen. So what do we do with these prophecies? We can't throw out the word of God. Well, we have to kind of allegorize it. It's figurative language for the church, which has replaced Israel. And so that kind of became the established idea. And that's where you get the like in end times prophecy, you've heard of the premillennials and postmillennials and amillennials. Like it's basically defining their position on the 1,000-year reign,
right,
described in the book of Revelation.
At what point tribulation falls, pre-trib, post-trib, mid-trib, and all that stuff.
Well, that's another issue, but
there's I think there's like 7 or 8 different eschatological schools, right?
Well, pre, post, and mid refers to when the rapture is supposed to occur.
Right.
There are 2 main parties, though. There's dispensationalism and covenant theology. Dispensationalism is usually the strain that believes in that they're premillennial, meaning the question of pre, post, or amillennial concerns will Jesus return before the millennium to reign physically on earth? Will he return after the millennial kingdom, or is there no millennial kingdom? Is this like an allegory for something? Catholics, as I understand, most of them are amillennial. They believe that the church age is that millennial kingdom, and that kind of fits into this idea of replacement theology, of that the church has replaced Israel. And so all the prophecies about the end times that deal with Israel, well, those are actually about the church, owing largely to the idea that Israel would never be a nation again. The fact that they're a nation again, that changes everything. That kind of renders all of that moot, but people are still committed to their traditions. And
wait. How does that render it moot?
Well, when you read all the prophecies about the end times that involve a national Israel, there's the previous motivation to interpret that as allegorical and applicable to the church. Well, that's not there anymore.
He's talking about like the replacement theology.
So because we created a state, and because they have their Democratic Party elected and what they do as the state of Israel, that means that there is a state of the real, true biblical Israel?
Why wouldn't there be?
Because why would there be? That was my question to you. Don't ask me why wouldn't there be. Tell me why there would be.
Because they're descendants of the Israelites. They're the children and great grandchildren of the people you read about in the Bible.
But so are we.
And so were the dudes in New York City.
So were the 3 of us.
Right.
We're not biologically. We're not genetically.
If we all come from Noah, we are.
We're not biologically, but a lot of
that doesn't make us Israelites.
In the Native Americans over here have tons of
I guarantee
corresponding DNA to
I guarantee that all of us have DNA that traces back to one of the 12 tribes.
No, we don't.
Unless you're a Nephilim, yeah.
But how do we know that this iteration? How do we know that this iteration of?
Let me address Matt's question, because you seem to be confused about you can say we're all descended from Noah, but that being descended from Noah doesn't make you. That's not what the Israelites were. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Right.
Shem's lineage led to Abraham.
Mm-hmm.
God called Abraham and said to him, this fits into the divine council worldview, right? All the nations gathered at the Tower of Babel. God disinherited them and gave them over to the watchers to rule over. And then afterwards, he chose Abraham, the the Lord has said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you. I will make you into a great nation, and I will bless you. I'll make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse, and all the peoples on earth will be blessed through you. So all the people in the region were Hebrews, descendants of Eber, of the line of Shem. Abraham alone was called out to be the father of God's chosen nation. And then he had Ishmael, whom, according to the Quran, Ishmael is the ancestor of the Arabs. Abraham said to God, if only Ishmael would be a great nation before you, and God said he would, but it's through Isaac that I will reckon your offspring.
I get where you're going. But my point was, so we were talking before we hit record about we were joking that probably everybody has a little Mongolian in them because of how much Genghis Khan affected the planet Earth. If we're talking about, there were 3 descendants of Noah, and one of them is the father of Abraham, which then they all come from.
Like 10 generations prior to.
Yeah, that's fine. But you're still talking about a 33% chance of all genetics on life on Earth relating back to that one tribe.
No.
That's pretty much how math works, dude. Unless the others were eunuchs or sterile.
But you're ignoring that's not the genealogy that I just laid out. Just being descended from Shem doesn't make you descended from Israel.
Look, what do you think the likelihood is of a person finding their genealogy to wind them back around to an Israeli, to an original Israeli?
Negligible.
Pretty high. Negligible?
Yes. I mean, it's negligible, meaning
based
negligible
on,
would
explain
be
that math. When we talk about
so is it high with the people that live in Israel today?
Yeah, it is.
I mean, you think those people never left and they all just stayed right there and just interproduced, and they never got on boats?
I mean, yeah. Plus, people had to get gathered back to Israel. Like, how are all those people all related to Abraham? All of them? It's high.
They do blood tests to become a Israeli citizen. I mean, if you're Jewish, you get in, and they test that. They don't just let anybody in. And Matt, you're wildly overstating the amount of. I mean, the Israelites were a pretty small group of people from a small nation on the coast of the Mediterranean. The vast majority, there's only Jews are about 0.2% of the world's population. I mean, they're a really small select group.
Ethnic Jews.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about.
But I'm talking about people that have one drop of Jewishness in them. Yeah, I'm not talking about an ethnic Jew.
What's the difference?
I don't know what.
What's the difference between an ethnic Jew?
An ethnic Jew is a person that has physiological and history tracing them into the Jewish community. Like, I would be considered an ethnic Asian because I'm a quarter Japanese.
Right, because you have Japanese blood.
But my great grandkids will have essentially zero that identifies them as that, and yet they're still descendants of the House of Suzuki.
Sure, that's you're making my point for me.
No, I'm not. I'm trying to tell you that there's people walking around that were Jewish 14 or 1400 generations ago that are still descendants of the same family, just because they're not tightly inbred on that family. Do you know how breeding coefficients work?
So you're saying that the Jews, you could be bred out of Jewishness.
I'm saying you can't.
I know what you're saying.
Right.
I'm asking Brian.
No, that's my point. These are the people who are ethnically, they have Jewish blood. That's what makes them Jewish. They identify as Jewish. They have Jewish lineage that we do not have. That's what makes them Jewish. you seem to be arguing that like there's nothing, that everybody is Jewish in some sense, and so
I'm
nobody
saying,
is.
I didn't say everyone. I'm saying I bet there's a massive number. I might have said everybody earlier. I was being a little, I was trying to overstate it, but the point is, there's a lot of people that have some of it in them that don't know it.
Okay, so,
and they're and my point is, if those people that exist are every bit as much Jewish from a biblical point of view as some 100%, I'm using air quotes,
and they can go live in Israel if they want. If
that's not my point. I don't care about if they can go live in Israel. I'm talking about as it relates to the biblical Israel, not the nation state Israel. I don't give a shit about the state of Israel.
But you're the one insisting there's a difference. What is it?
I didn't say there was a difference. I said there's a lot more of them. You're speaking as if there's only like 1.8 million of them or something.
You guys are denying that the modern state of Israel corresponds to the Israel in view in the prophecy of Jeremiah.
First of all, when did I said I deny it? I asked a question.
Then what are we arguing about?
I asked a question, and we're having a conversation about a question I asked. I never even stated my opinion.
Okay. Well,
I asked a question. I said, are they the same? And if they are, then I've had a follow-on question, and we've been having a conversation for 20 minutes about it. I never said they are or aren't.
Okay. Well,
I don't know why you would presume that.
Well, I apologize. I misunderstood you. So what's your follow-on question?
Well, the follow-on question was we were still kind of in the middle of it. We got derailed, but if Israel is still the Israel from the Bible, what is their, I don't know what the right word is, prognosis, or what is the outlook or their end state if they continue to not believe in Christ? Because the Bible's hyper clear in Jesus's own words, no man goes to the Father except through me, he who knew him first or comes from him. So like Jesus said really clearly, no one, no Gentiles. He said no one goes to heaven or goes to the Father without me. So what happens if, first of all, what's happened to all of the Jews who have died from the day of Christ's, we'll say crucifixion, the day of the new covenant, right? Since circa 33 AD, since, because we don't know the exact date, but from then on, every Jew that has died, what's the status of their immortality?
Well, they'll be judged like everybody else, but that's not the issue that we're talking about here. We're talking about the Jews' role in history. That's
the one I'm talking about. I'm talking about the ones before. I get that the ones before Christ was born were living under the old law. Like that makes sense to me, because they were God's people, and whether they did what he told them to or not, that's on them.
But you're asking a question about their eternal destiny when the law of Moses doesn't even talk about that. That's not the point. It's also not really, the dying and going to heaven, as we've discussed, is not the point of Christianity either. But you're asking about so there's a prophecy in the book of Zechariah about the end times. Talks about how the nations will be gathered around Jerusalem to destroy Israel. And God will intervene, and he says that on that day I will make the clans of Judah like a fire pot and a wood pile, like a flaming torch among sheaves. They will consume all the surrounding peoples left and right, but Jerusalem will remain intact in her place. The Lord will save the dwellings of Judah first, so that the honor of the house of David and of Jerusalem's inhabitants may not be greater than that of Judah. On that day, the Lord will shield those who live in Jerusalem, so that the feeblest among them will be like David, and the house of David will be like God, like the angel of the Lord going before them. On that day, I will set out to destroy all the nations that attacked Jerusalem. Here's the cool part. And I will pour out on the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem a spirit of grace and supplication. They will look on me, the one they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only child, and grieve bitterly for him as one grieved for a firstborn son. On that day, the weeping in Jerusalem will be as great as the weeping of Hadad Rimmon in the plain of Megiddo. The land will mourn, each clan by itself, with their wives by themselves, the clan of the house of David, and their wives, the clan of the house of Nathan, and their wives, et cetera, all the rest of the clans and their wives. So basically, Jerusalem is going to be surrounded by armies. God's going to intervene and to save them. And there's going to be this great revelation of God himself where they look upon him and they mourn. Why do they mourn? They mourn for him as one mourns for a firstborn son and weep bitterly for him. They're going to recognize that Jesus was their Messiah, that God himself was embodied in the person they've been rejecting for the past 2,000 years.
That sounds like bullshit.
Why?
So hang on. Let me interpret how you just explained that.
Okay.
So Jews get to be pricks for, I don't know, however many centuries they want to be, and refuse to accept Christianity because the interpretation in Zechariah or Zebediah that you just said is Zechariah. That at some point they're going to be up against it. God's going to step in and they're going to go, bad.
Shit, you sitting the wolf?
And
that's all you had to say.
Their hundreds of thousands of dead descendants get absolved in that moment simply because God finally emerged. That's no,
nobody said that.
That's exactly what it says.
That's not what it says.
Then what does it say?
It doesn't say anything about all of their ancestors being absolved.
Well, that's gonna be the final fulfillment of the point of, because by the time that's happened, then the full number of Gentiles have been done, and that's fulfilling the prophecy that Israel is going to be reinstated and grafted back on the tree. Like all of that stuff is circular there at that.
Yeah,
but
you're importing the part. I'm sorry, what would you say, Dre?
So they're going to be saved by God intervening as the world bears down on Jerusalem, and they're going to be like, "Oh, thanks. Holy shit, we were so wrong." Yes.
Okay.
So they get a mulligan.
What do you think it means?
That's why I just said what I think it means, and I don't know what that's really in reference to or when. So, and just because that prophecy might happen, it doesn't mean that this iteration of that state is the fulfillment of that. In other words, Israel could fall 3 or 4 more times, way outside of our lifetime, and then be built back up. And in that, because it didn't happen over the last 2,000 years,
right?
And now because we artificially made the state, and maybe that was the Holy Spirit that had the UN make.
What do you mean artificially?
The UN clearly wasn't the hand of
God.
What
do I mean?
So what's the difference between an artificial state and like a natural grown state? What does that even mean?
I don't know. Take America, for example.
Okay.
So there's colonial over here.
I mean, America is pretty unique, but
yeah. And so in every other country too, they fought a war, won, and now it's their thing.
Israel's the only country, to my knowledge, that exists.
You are Israel
because the UN just decided to decree it,
and then everybody else defended it for the first iteration.
What do you mean everybody else defended it? What like defended Israel?
Yes,
they didn't defend themselves.
And America still defends Israel.
We don't defend Israel. We arm them. But they do their own fighting.
Potato.
And if it looked like they were going to fall, we wouldn't intervene.
The golden.
I have no idea what we would do.
I think we would intervene.
We intervened in the 100-day war.
I think that's
even if it was only to keep Russia out, we intervened.
They don't actually fuck with Israel because they have a big brother that's across the.
We didn't do anything for them in the 1948 war or the 67 war.
The 1948 was the 100-day war, right? Or was that the 67? Which one was the 100-day war?
I don't know.
Well, why would we in the 1930s? That wasn't declared a thing yet. When was the Israel state made?
1948.
48.
Right. So why?
Whichever war was the 100-day war,
30s?
we 100% stepped in because Russia was going to, and we blocked Russia. We used sanctions, and
we haven't had to step in because they weren't in danger.
Well, like
they keep winning.
I don't. That's my point.
Yes.
I mean, I don't. So I don't know what your objections are to the state of Israel. Like why?
I don't think he has an objection. I think what he said was, we don't know that this current iteration of Israel is the Israel. Is pretty much what Dre said.
That's all I'm saying. And things that they do geopolitically, I don't agree with. So why would I stand with them? I can stand with the Israeli people. I can stand with Jews, but I don't need to stand with Netanyahu.
Well, and
I don't have to.
And by the way, nothing about anything I said requires that Israel gets a blank check to do whatever they want. I mean, Israel of the Bible, I wouldn't rate that. I mean, that doesn't mean everything Israel did in the Bible was something everybody automatically has to approve of.
What I'm saying is, I don't stand with Israel for Israel's sake because I'm a Christian.
And nothing I have said requires that. I think those are. I think
my original question, as we started the show, was: is it required? That was the question.
Okay, well, at no point have I addressed that particular question. I've addressed other questions you guys have brought up, but
here's another question.
Well, hold on. I mean, do you want me to address the question he just asked, or
which question? I didn't know he asked a question. I thought he just made a statement.
Are Christians required to stand with Israel?
Oh,
I thought that's what the whole discussion is.
Well, those are separate issues. Is the state of Israel, is it Israel of the Bible? I think the answer is yes, and I don't think you guys have given any good reasons to not think that. It's just that you're placing. You're basically defaulting.
Is there a separation between the people of Israel and the nation state that is today?
I don't think, no more than any other nation. I mean, my point all along is that people make that distinction between the modern state of Israel. Christians make that distinction between the modern state of Israel and biblical Israel of the past, and biblical Israel of end times. They do that because of replacement theology. There's no. So typically Christians do.
So I've got a question about that replacement theology, well, and I know, but this question is relevant to where we are in the conversation right now.
Okay.
Would replacement theology exist if Israel already existed?
Right. That's my point. It's the replacement theology is 100% a response to the fact that
Israel didn't exist at the time.
Christians had to do something with all of these end times prophecies that involve national Israel.
Right. So then wouldn't it be a natural leap to say that Christians, aka Americans and Brits to a certain degree, would have had a vested interest in recreating Israel such that they could then usher in the end times?
I think that's where I was going.
I think that
I figured it was also. That's kind of where I was going.
I think that accounts for some of them, yeah. But I mean, first of all, Zionism was already a thing before the Holocaust, before World War II. There were Jewish settlements in Israel, even when the Ottomans ruled. When the British liberated the land from the Ottomans, of course, there were more Jewish settlements coming in. But there's kind of always been a push for the Jews to retake their homeland, just among the Jews themselves. There are some strains of religious Jews who reject Zionism because they believe it's the Messiah's job to regather the Jewish remnant to the promised land, and that this is man trying to do God's job for him. But that's not the majority of Jews. But I mean, there were forces that were kind of moving together to create the state of Israel anyway. But I mean, the Balfour Declaration certainly helped. And the Holocaust showed the need for that. But no, I wouldn't say it's 100% Christian Brits and Americans who were trying to bring about the end times.
Then why else? What else justifies the UN resolution?
And do Arabs have the same claim, other than they lost? But if there's a push for them to regain their land that they had won and lost, then do they have the same claim to that land as the Jews?
Well,
take religion off the table, right? Like, suspend whether or not you believe in the sanctity of Islam, right? Or suspend whether or not you're a Christian. If you're just to look at the situation from a historical, geographical war point of view, like, I feel like that changes the calculus of the view of the land.
Yeah, I agree. If not for Islam, I don't think the Arab world would care. If the issue, I mean,
no, I don't think the question was would they care. Was if you made Islam and Judaism not exist, what nation has right to that land? And I don't think there's an answer. Is my opinion.
I don't think there is an
right. The winner, period. Just whoever has the biggest guns and can stand there and go, "This is my land."
Just like Montana.
Well,
I think it's mine.
Yeah, if that's the claim to the land, then the right of conquest, then yeah, the Israelis have that right.
But they had the right if they could take it, but they didn't. The UN put them there.
Right.
The UN displaced the Palestinians to put the Israelis there.
It was in British control.
Right.
Well, the British did that. The British took it from the Ottomans.
There was no Israeli army that stood up on the West Bank and decided we're going to go rush and get our homeland back.
They didn't displace the Palestinians. I mean, first of all, nobody called themselves a Palestinian until there was propaganda value in doing so. The Arabs were allowed to. The Israelis didn't drive out the Arabs or the Palestinians. The Palestinians leaders told them to leave, and that created the refugee crisis. That's what led them to get to mass in Gaza and the West Bank. The Israelis were perfectly happy to. I mean, in the Israeli charter in 1948, they explicitly said that Arabs are equal citizens. Nobody had to leave. Now, when they start organizing and trying to destroy the state of Israel, then they have to do something about it. But no, they didn't displace the Palestinians.
I don't know. We have an American U.S. Constitution that says that Black people are the same also, but what happened?
Okay, so what does that what does that mean?
It means that no, we weren't. No, we were not equal, and don't try to say that we were. And so to say that just because there was a charter to perhaps appease the world doesn't mean that was true.
Okay, so what is true, Dre? What is the?
I think there's explicit racism going on there. Yes.
I mean, that's as undefined as.
I don't think that it is. I think that somebody with a passport with a brown skin has trouble getting into Israel, even though they're American. And I have documented proof of the young lady that was doing that because she has some kind of Arab descent. Look, speaking as a Black dude in America, that's a real thing.
Sure.
And just because your charter says so, and just because it looks good to the world, and we can sit over here 7,000 miles away and say, hey, that's not what happened. The Palestinians decided to do that. They were displaced, man.
Okay. So
to say they weren't displaced is just complete. I won't buy that.
Well, then you're wrong. You're ignorant of the history, Dre. That's the bottom line. You're passing on propaganda. Your accusations are as undefined as America is the most racist place on earth.
I mean, it says most racist place. I said that there was actual racism and racist laws in America towards Black people. Was there not?
Sure.
Was Jim Crow a thing or not?
Sure, Jim Crow is a thing.
Is there a Jim Crow?
What does that have to do with Israel?
Is there a Jim Crow top type laws in Israel that has to do with Palestinians?
No, there's not. Name one. If I'm wrong, name one.
I don't know. Do I have to call her? I'll call her right now.
Sure,
I'll call her. I'll call her tomorrow, and we'll talk about it.
I'd like to know. To say. I mean, if you want to define the racism, if you want to say here's something objective and measurable and definable that they're doing this racist, I'll hear you out. But when you're telling me the private internal attitudes of Israelis,
because I don't have the actual list in front of me right now to tell you what the racist things are, when it's documented, it really is.
I think you're racist toward white people, Dre.
You think I'm racist toward white people?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think that.
Yeah. Oh, what's your evidence of that?
I don't have to define it. I mean, you've done racist things in the past.
Oh, okay.
You see how easy that is? For the record, I don't think you're racist. I don't think you have a racist bone in your body. But the point is, it's easy to just say that. It's easy to just to throw out these sweeping generalizations without definition and slur somebody's character.
Okay. So next week I'll have a list. Okay. I'll have a list next week.
Okay. I mean, that's not an unreasonable request.
Okay.
I mean, because you can. I mean,
I should have come with one, and because I kind of back my mind knew you would say that to me. I kind of did.
I was gonna. You knew that you were gonna.
I knew that you were gonna ask me for exact specifics, and that those types of things aren't happening in Israel, and it's not racist there, and there's no issues on the borders. There's no problems with people coming in and out. There's no food and water. None of those issues apply. None of that thing is actually happening. In fact, it's just propaganda, and I'm completely out of my mind. So, okay, that's cool. I'll have a list.
Well, I mean, are there hardships
for either one of us to say that there's no racism that's going on in Israel toward Gaza is really tough to do because neither one of us live there.
Well, I mean,
but I do have first-person knowledge of people telling me.
I think it's insane to say that there's none, because there's racism everywhere. First of all,
and that's part of their
point. I'm not getting into the America's terrible blah blah. America, I believe, is on the better side of racism.
Oh, 100%. Globally speaking. First of all, and I'm not saying that America is a racist nation. So I'm saying that to say that there was laws on books to say that people are equal, and then to say so therefore they are
is because law, therefore it doesn't. There's no problem. Is fantastical, and it's precious to think that that's the case, right? Like, well, I mean, we just talked about the fact that Israelis are not friendly, potentially violent to Christians. If that's even remotely true, then how do they act towards Muslims? Like, come on.
No,
we're on the same team, and they're not. Okay, they're not super chill.
Okay, but that's still that. They don't discriminate against people for being Muslims. They discriminate against people for vowing their destruction.
That's a take. But I'm telling you, I just watched a video where the guy was saying it's justifiable to murder Christians just for being Christians.
What video was that?
The one I just told you that I watched that I didn't save. I just watched with my own eyes.
That couldn't get through a checkpoint because she looked Arab.
So, like,
look, I was a white guy in Israel when I was leaving Israel, and they asked me where I was, like where did I spend my time, where did I stay, and I told them it was mostly Jerusalem. They asked me who do I know there. I listed the people that I had met there. A lot of them were Arabs. I got the VIP treatment. They held me for questioning. They thought I might be a terrorist. It wasn't because they were racist. it's because they live in a state of a constant state of warfare.
That's a
where
different
they're
thing.
Mortal.
That's completely
it's the
different.
same thing. It's
no,
exactly
it's not the same
thing.
thing. It's different.
It is not the same
it's
thing.
Different.
If my skin were brown and I describe my experience to you, I'm sure you would have told me, well, they were just racist against you for being.
I wouldn't.
Arab.
I wouldn't, because I understand
either.
state security. We're not talking about state security. That's a It's a conflation. I've also been detained by Israeli security trying to get into Israel, and I almost missed my flight because of it.
But if I had made up my mind, if I was an Arab and I had made up my mind that the Israelis are racist against me for being Arab, that would have been confirmation.
Being detained for state security and being told by an Israeli, I can kill you because you're a Christian, are vastly different things.
Okay, so you're taking one person in one video and deciding that's representative of the.
Did I say that?
Entire.
Did I say that? You like to do that a lot and say that I'm now saying all Israelis want to kill Christians, and I never said that. I simply said, if that video can exist today with the internet, that guy had his phone out and was live streaming it, and he live streamed that today or yesterday. If that could happen today to a Christian, what could possibly happen to Muslims when there's no cameras around? That's all I'm saying.
And if their justification is because they're in a perpetual state of war, I get it, but it doesn't mean that they don't have some stuff coming to them. It doesn't mean that. No, I get it. It's war.
What do you mean by
war
that? They have some stuff coming to them.
What do I mean by that? I mean that if I'm in a perpetual state of war, that means the other side is also in a perpetual state of war, and therefore you will be attacked.
You're
going to be attacked.
I'm gonna interrupt this real quick. Hey, Dre, Damian Harris went down again and just got stretchered off the field. The Bengal that had the chest thing happen.
Oh, Damar Hamlin.
Damar Hamlin. Sorry, I'm reading what my wife texted.
Damar Hamlin of
Damar
the Buffalo
Hamlin.
Bills.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. The Buffalo's playing New York, the football giants right now.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh wow. Okay.
It was interesting.
And to be very clear, I am not wired in any way that that will condone a music festival being attacked, elderly people being shot in the street, children being taken, women being raped and paraded, people being used as
infants being beheaded.
Yeah, there's zero chance that I condone any of that, and I denounce Hamas as a terrorist organization, and I feel for the people of that region to be governed by something so just straight dangerous. I mean, in their charter they say this needs to be a Palestinian state and all Jews must leave. They have to be gone or dead. So I will say that. I will also say that when you're the controlling state and there's people that actually come to a place where they elect that, there has to be a bigger reason than simply because they're
Arab. Being Arab doesn't matter.
It's because Islam teaches Jew hatred. That's the reason.
It's not even Jew. It's not even Jew hatred.
It is. It's specifically Jew hatred.
They're not big fans of the Christian.
No, at all. In fact, they say that that's like the closest alligator to the boat. The big Satan is us.
Right.
So,
yeah, they're little Satan. We're big Satan.
After we crush them, we can go across the ocean and kill the big Satan over there.
But there's a specific hatred for Jews also.
Okay, I know.
They talk about how, like, when they at the end time, in order to bring about the end times, all the Jews have to be killed. There's this glorious time described in the hadiths when the Muslims will finally wipe out all the Jews, and this
good thing there's a bunch of them in America, huh?
Right.
And this will finally precipitate the end times when Muslim Jesus returns and sets up a Muslim paradise. Yeah, they've kind of co-opted the Christian.
Peace be with them.
Yeah. But I mean, Dre, I think that kind of sums up the whole issue. The Hamas is the elected government of the Palestinian people. They always had that attitude from the moment.
I'd like to see those votes.
Okay, they also won by a narrow margin, and then all of the opposition was murdered immediately.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'd like to see those votes.
Sure.
That's like saying Stalin was the elected, or Lenin back in that day.
Did you guys watch that video I sent you the other day about Farfour, Palestinian Mickey Mouse?
Yeah.
That was from a Palestinian.
Terrible voice acting.
That was from a Palestinian children's show from 2007 to 2009, and
2007 when Hamas took over that area, right, and killed all the opposition. So that's the propaganda they're going to have.
Well, but that wasn't put out by Hamas. That was just the Palestinian broadcasting network.
If Hamas won the election, what else is the broadcasting going to put out?
I don't think Hamas was.
Are they going to in 2007? Absolutely, they won in 2005.
So, do you think that was? In 2006. Sure.
So that's the leaning of the government and the propaganda that's going to be put out. So that sucks.
Do you think that was exceptional? Do you think like the rest of the like Palestinian children's programming is, I don't know, pro-Israel, or
I don't know if it's pro-Israel, but until you show me what the Palestinian children programming was pre-Hamas, then I'm just going to believe that that's that.
But you want to see the TVs?
I do. I want to see all the ratings, and I want to see the
you can take that
scripts.
I don't think that's a realistic view. I mean,
he's turning around the way you responded to a couple of his comments.
I asked him to define, how is Israel racist? And it was
but for you to ask a question, do you think that's the way all their other shows are? How in the bloody hell would any of us know what kind of television programming Hamas puts out?
And I also think that it's convenient that
I don't think it's difficult to infer.
I mean, that's your view, and that's a take, but that doesn't make it accurate. It makes it your assumption.
I think if you look into it more, you'll find that I'm right.
Or you could look into it. You could come back and show me their TV guide and show me all of their shows for a year. Come on, dude.
No, you come on.
I'm trying.
This idea that you think this is an anomaly. You think that's not.
I have no idea.
Okay, if you have no idea, then that should be your position on everything.
And that's what I said. But when you say that Dre's got to bring data to prove his opinion, and your opinion is just an opinion, and you've got an opinion about.
I'm not offering an opinion. I'm telling you what
about
the
their
facts
TV
are.
programming. You're not telling me facts about their TV programming. You're giving me opinion based on.
You're giving me facts about a TV programming that happened after a terrorist group took over.
And then you're making an assumption that all of their programming is just like that, and that's all that is an assumption.
It always has been just like that.
You're probably right, but that doesn't make it less of an assumption.
Thank you for at least that bit of reasonableness.
But that's all it is an assumption. I can agree with it. It probably is all slanted that way, but that doesn't mean it is.
I haven't done an exhaustive content analysis of Palestinian children's programming.
I'm sure you haven't.
But if you think that's an exception, you are lying to yourself. You live in a fantasy world if you don't think that's
I have
typical.
Zero opinion. I've never thought about Hamas children's programming until you sent that link for that one show, and I've not thought about Hamas children's programming since.
Well, maybe that's something you should give more thought to.
You're absolutely right. I should sit around and think about Hamas children's programming.
Maybe that's something you should give more thought to before you offer firm opinions on the situation.
I offered no firm opinion on Hamas children's programming.
I've
done quite the opposite.
The data that a group
the point
who had been fighting for a while, they won a narrow majority in a place. And when you win a narrow majority, it probably means that all the people of Gaza and the West Bank are not completely aligned with them. And
are you assuming that the opposition they won against was pro-Israel?
I didn't know. I don't know if they're pro-Israel, but they're probably a lot more pro-peace.
Why is that probable?
So
you think they were more or less? You think they were less peace? They were more pro war than Hamas, and that the Palestinians chose the chill terrorists,
and they were so aligned with the same type of thinking that they all had to die.
It was a power. They weren't arguing over ideology; they were arguing over power.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
What was the other party's platform?
Right. Who was the other party?
You know what? I don't know. You don't know either. I mean, that was
okay.
We're throwing around conjecture, and you state conjecture is fact.
But it's not conjecture.
But I do know that the occupation, as we know it today, of the blockades and the lack of humanity that goes on in that area, all happened after that election. And I do know that perhaps there's a security state that causes that to happen. So Hamas getting control really is the boogeyman in the room. And after they got control, Israel's like, okay, cool, you get Gaza. They actually ceded land.
Yeah,
but they also kind of held them
cede land.
Yeah, and then but also controlled everything that goes in and out of there, because it has to go through them to get to there. Correct? Where's the ports of Gaza? Where's the ports of Gaza?
So they shouldn't do that. They should just they should let a political they should let a state that has vowed their destruction just get unpoliced commerce. Is that what you're saying?
Unpoliced commerce, like water?
Yeah,
they should get water.
Okay, so
yeah, I do.
No, I think Palestine.
Hold on, back up. Dre, are you saying that the Israelis they have blockades to keep the Palestinians from getting water? Is that what you're saying right now?
Yes.
Horseshit.
Okay.
It's horseshit. You know it's horseshit, don't you?
I do. I know it's horseshit.
You think the Palestinians don't have water because the Israelis have been preventing it since Hamas was elected?
Yes.
Okay.
Gaza's got coastline.
Okay.
There's coast. I'm looking at a map. Well, I don't know how accurate this map is. I don't know how current this map is.
See, this is why I didn't want to litigate this stuff, because none of us are experts on this, but I mean, I think you guys are wrong about everything you've said. Absolutely everything. If there's a way to be wrong, you guys are wrong about it. I mean, you're the entire history of the region. You seem to be getting from Ilhan Omar.
I really didn't talk about history. I was talking about current stuff. But yeah, you're still right. Salty because I don't agree with your children programming point. But Gaza has coastline. They have the beach, actually.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so I got more homework.
And they're bordered by Jordan on the east.
I'm not saying Israel's alone in this.
I mean, the West Bank.
I also mentioned Egypt, right? I think they have some blockades going on.
You said they're bordered by Jordan on the east?
The West Bank is bordered by Jordan. It's called the West Bank because it's the West Bank of the Jordan River. No, the country of Jordan.
It's bordered which I would Egypt.
Say. No, the West Bank.
Oh, the east side of the West Bank. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
but the Gaza Strip is on the Med. The West Bank is landlocked. So there could be an argument that says that there's some kind of a blockade getting stuff from the Gaza Strip to the West Bank. But then Brian's correct that Jordan could easily fix that problem by giving them whatever they wanted.
Okay.
Are the Jordanians racist against Palestinians?
Maybe.
It could be.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the same race, so that would be hard.
We could have a whole other conversation about that.
We definitely could.
That would be way off the topic, but that's also not necessarily impossible. There's Mexicans that are racist against other Mexicans. There's that happens all over the place.
Blacks too. But
all right. Yeah. Well, All right, have we solved the Middle East issue, guys?
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Middle East is solved.
Just
Peace, love,
totally
and hair
solved.
grease.
All right, good talk.
Oh, it was fun.
Was it?
I mean, this is about as much fun as you would find excitement in the potential of being martyred in Israel.
Right. I mean, that's exciting.
No, I didn't say I wanted to be.
You said your words were excitement.
You said it'd be exciting. That's what you said.
Well, yeah. When I talk to other Christians in the area, they would kind of, they
I don't think the word excitement means what.
I think he was using it in a literal sense, not in
I think he was too.
Emotional, positive emotional sense.
They kind of punched up the drama and of their, the persecutions they suffered, and I could tell they were preparing this, the debriefing to their church back home. And
did they punch up the drama, or were they just little bitches?
I mean, that's a way to put it.
Or little bitches dramatic? Is that what you're saying?
That's kind of a less charitable way of saying what I was saying is, but
so are Christians required to stand with Israel?
I think Christians are. It depends on how you define stand with Israel. See, I don't like.
So give me a for instance on when they would or when they wouldn't.
I think that what God told Abraham or Abram in Genesis 12, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. I think that still applies today to Israel, but that doesn't mean, I don't think blessing Israel means a blank check to agree with everything they do because they're Israel. I mean, I think we can believe that they are God's chosen people and still, in theory, be critical of things they do. That said, the things that they do, I think rightly understood, which a great many people in this country do not rightly understand it. Rightly understood, I don't think they have much to criticize. I think they think they have a right to exist and defend themselves, and the Palestinians lie. You can, but yeah, theoretically, if Israel is wrong about something, believing they're God's chosen people doesn't preclude criticizing it. I wouldn't have given Israel ruled by Solomon a blank check and agree with everything they did.
Right. Definitely wouldn't give David a blank check. You think that that verse, I mean, so, curse those that go against them and bless those that support them. Is lack of support cursable? I'm not trying to be cute with the words. I mean, if, like, let's say Israel is to get invaded, another 100-day war type scenario, right? And we just watched. We didn't attack them. We didn't set up the attack. We didn't encourage the attack. We didn't engender it or permit it. We just didn't stop it. Kind of like what we did with Ukraine. Right? We've openly said we're not for the Russian invasion of the Ukraine, but we're not defending the Ukraine. I mean, I'm not asking you to like interpret for God. I'm just like, I'm putting this out there like broadly. Like, does that feel like something that would be in violation of the spirit and intent of the verse?
Well, let me put it this way. What if like we just like France, for whatever reason, turned hostile and invaded Britain?
Okay.
Well, they turned hostile toward NATO. They became, they started undermining us abroad. They became our declared enemy. And then they invaded Britain. Should we intervene or just let France take over Britain?
I didn't say should. That's not what I'm asking. I'm not asking what's right and wrong in what we should do. I'm saying, do you see theological wiggle room between action and inaction. And I mean, that could be you also. I mean, I'm just,
yeah.
This is just like I have more questions than I have answers and opinions on this situation.
Well, my point is that the theological issue is a bit of a red herring. It's a bit of, it's kind of a non sequitur.
And are you saying that our relationship with England and Israel are equivalent?
Yeah, geopolitically they are. Yeah, they're allies. They share our values.
We're much more aligned with England than we are with Israel.
By far.
I mean, you know how classifications work.
By a lot.
England's part of Four Eyes.
Well,
Israel's not.
Look, I don't care to litigate which alliance is closer, but the fact of the matter is Israel shares our values. They're the only democracy in the Middle East. They are culturally a lot like us. We do have a close alliance with them. And on top of that, yeah, they're God's chosen people, but I think those are not necessarily linked. The question is, what should we do if any ally was being invaded by a hostile force? Should we just stand back and let it happen because they're not God's chosen people, or do we intervene?
Well, okay. So if you're speaking from that level, what does our allyship say? So have we vowed that we would protect them under all costs?
We don't
have with England.
But that's my point. Like we've not helped Israel before.
Yeah, but you're not asking me to litigate this treaty or that. We don't actually have a treaty with Israel.
I'm not talking about treaties. I'm talking about if we were to simply watch.
You're asking from a moral perspective.
Well, I'm asking from a theological perspective.
Well, but I think the theology I don't think that's necessarily separable from the moral question. Morally, a nation that shares our values, should we, well, first of all, I don't know
we're
that Israel
theologically obligated to protect Taiwan.
If we can. I mean, if we can do it without, starting World War III. I mean, with anything, you have to weigh the cost.
Why is that? So, I mean, shouldn't we weigh the cost with Israel as well?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
that's my point. And it's like you're asked. It's as an abstract question. Well,
so Israel has no more significance than any other ally in the world.
I didn't say that.
So but what is the significance? Is it theological? I think is that what Matt's asking?
So
we have allies in the world.
That's not what I'm asking.
No, so like
I'm asking a completely different question. I'm asking, so like, and I said the wrong thing earlier. I just looked it up. So I kept saying the 100-Day War. The 100-Day War was in the 1800s. I was the 6-Day War is the war I was thinking of.
The 100-Day War was in the late 70s, early 80s.
I just Googled it. It told me it was 18 something. It's fine. It doesn't matter. I was talking about the 6-Day War, which is when Israel fought Egypt, Jordan, and Syria.
That's 73, right?
67.
Okay.
That's 73 is the Yom Kippur War.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was the 6-Day War part 2.
Okay.
And I forgot, I read some book. I forget what it was. I read a book about these wars. That was that's how I knew about the US and Russia and all that part. I forget what the book was that I read. But it was like, it would explain like the actual, the order of battle and all that, and how the wars happened. What I'm asking is, if another war happens, another 6-Day War, War of 73, Yom Kippur War, whatever, we didn't participate, right? Like we didn't participate in any of these wars that Russia. I just looked up all the wars that Israel's been in since 1948, right? And in not one of these does the U.S. show up as a combatant, right? A couple of times the SLA, the Lebanese, and the FLA participated with Israel. But other than that, it was Israel on their own, except the Sinai War in 1956, where the UK and France helped them. So in none of these wars has the U.S. helped. Now, we might have been working behind the scenes, whatever, right? And some of them we were. I'm sure probably all of them we were. Does working behind the scenes count biblically? Right? Like, that's what I'm trying to get at have we even ever fell into this, we actually support Israel? I'm just kind of thinking out loud now, because the Genesis verse says, you can't fight against them or God will curse you, but you have to support them and God will bless you. Well, we've never supported them in any kind of real meaningful way.
Well, we provide lots of funding for them, and the funding.
Does that count? Like, I'm not trying to be funny now, but is that like, are we getting?
I don't know why it wouldn't.
What's the term when you go to the Catholic Church and you pay money and you get to go to heaven? Indulgences. So we're getting indulgences via Israel. Like,
I think that's the wrong way to look at it.
I think we didn't intervene because we didn't need to. I think if one of our major enemies attacked, like Iran, Russia, China, something of that nature, I think we would intervene.
I think
we would get deep in it.
I think Israel has shown itself capable of defending itself. Right. If they ask for our help, then we have a different discussion. But until they do, I think, frankly, I'm rooting for them, because they share our values, and they're an ally, and they're the only democracy in the Middle East. And I think it's consistent with who we are as a country to support a country like Israel. In addition, I believe that they are the inheritors of the promise God gave to Israel, to Abraham in the book of Genesis. And I think we're better off blessing them than cursing them.
So in this latest iteration of conflict in Israel, do you think that we should restrain Israel, or should we let them go gloves off,
as far as
change the borders back? Right? Because Netanyahu was talking about this thing must going to change some borders. The Gaza Strip will not exist. That shit will be Israel.
Yeah.
And
I saw an interview with a military leader. I didn't see his name, but he basically said, we're going to go into Gaza and we're going to displace Hamas.
Their leadership, right?
Yeah. And that's like,
is that something we condone? Is that something that we restrain? Is there something we kind of
I feel like at some level it has to be done, right? Because this is one of those, if you always do what you always did, you're always going to get what you always got kind of scenarios. Like, what makes anybody think that anything's going to change just by, everybody going, all right, everybody separate, back to your corners, and then start over again? Like, what's different? What's going to change next time?
What's the next conflict if that actually happens?
Israel.
It's a good question.
Israel has historically proven that they are extremely reluctant to harm non-combatants. That's a fact.
Not lately.
What do you mean not lately?
What I mean not lately, I mean that their intelligence.
The disconnect here, Brian, is you said that they're better than us at not killing non-combatants, and that's patently unfucking true.
I was just going with what you guys said.
No,
not even remotely close.
No. Now, Brian, what you're saying right now is you're saying they're better than Hamas is, and that's fine.
That's absolutely true.
And that's true. And we can all three 100% agree with that. But then you said they do a better job than we do.
One of you interrupted me with, no, not like us. And I said, okay, fine.
And then you said, in fact, they probably do a better job than us. And that's when you went.
I said continue. So what were you saying?
My point is that when Hamas hides behind civilians, when they specifically tell them don't leave so that the Israelis can't attack us without hitting you, and they stay, what the hell is Israel supposed to do?
But that's not what's been happening. What's been happening is they.
I share some of those concerns, believe it or not. I mean, Israel attacked the USS Liberty. And the official stories, they didn't know about it, but there's reason to think but that was, decades ago.
Dre, didn't Zim tell us that story?
Someone did.
I'm pretty sure it was Zim. It was like around the same time he was telling us about aliens in the Bible because of the lunar landing modules, and Moses turned white because of radiation poisoning. That was Zim, right?
Yeah. I just struggle with this, with this new version, and for it to be justified because of the atrocities that Hamas did in these last attacks, and because it's justified, they can go gloves off.
Yeah, and I like I have some of those same concerns. I'm not pretending that Israel is without sin, or that they should get a blank check to do whatever they want and commit whatever atrocities they please. But if we're litigating the entire 80 plus year conflict, I think Israel is undeniably the good guy here.
I think if you net it all together, if you just add all the pluses and the minuses, I don't think it's arguable that Israel is the good guys.
But it's not. That's not what.
Right. It's not the way it works.
Right.
Right.
And I don't.
And by the way, if that had been my family, my state, my area that happened to, and you had some of my people held hostage, I'd probably be committing atrocities, and that wouldn't be okay. But I probably would still do it.
And there's been atrocities that we've perpetrated due to anger, due to retaliating, in a certain way, in certain places,
Yeah. I mean, you go back to some of the stuff that happened, in Southeast Asia when we were out there.
Right.
There's quite a few of those stories. Again, it doesn't make it okay, to quote Chris Rock, but I understand.
I mean, war brings out the worst of everybody.
Well, this is why I led with that quote, with that quote from Orville, right?
And it probably is where my stance is. Like, look, we still live by the laws of conquest, whether we're civilized or not in 2023 as compared to a long time ago. The laws of conquest still exist.
Civilization only gets you so far. When you start
you take a place,
that is,
and you have to fight for it. So there's blood on those hills there, and if you want to keep it, you must defend it. And if you cannot defend it, then you don't get it. Which is why you'll never hear me make the argument about colonization on any front in any part of the world. Like, oh, we're gonna drive out the Zionist colonizers. Well, what about all the people that colonized it before? The reason why Palestine is a place without a home is because they've been occupied their entire existence. And so because we have this problem in our modern society where we're just angry at whoever holds the power today. If you have power, then you're clearly the bad guy, and anyone who's the underdog is not the bad guy. And I don't subscribe to that, which is why I don't hate white people or the West or Europe as a whole. It's they won. Sucks to suck. Have fun with that, Media Matters.
Right. Right.
Are we getting listened to by Media Matters? That'd be awesome.
I hope so. That'd be
a couple of things. I want to clarify a couple of things, because I made a couple of statements. So when I was talking about the war, but the book that I read, it was definitely the Sinai War in 1956, and the end of the War of Independence. So the reason I know this now, I've been doing some clicking. The commander at the time was David Ben-Gurion, in that book that I was reading, and those are the two wars that he fought in and about. So, and that was also the bloodiest war. They lost over 6,000 total people. Second thing I was going to point out is I made a comment about Jerusalem having a second era in the more recent term with the Saracens and whatnot. I was right. It was just before the Crusades. Jerusalem was owned by Christians from 1229 to 1244. That's what I was talking about. And it was the Battle of Acre. And when the knights got pushed out after at the end of the Crusades, essentially, that's what I was referring to.
Right, when Orlando Bloom and
100%.
What's her name left? Yeah, that was a good movie.
Yeah. It actually was a really good movie.
Have you seen the director's cut?
It was a pretty long movie on its own.
It's like a 1,000 times better on the
Is
director's
it?
cut.
I might check it out.
By the way, I hate what's the guy's name? The director. He did Gladiator, tip of my tongue.
Gladiator director?
Yeah, he did. He directed Gladiator, Legend. It's
that one guy.
I don't know why I'm drawing a blank.
It's so crazy that I'm drawing a blank at the same time.
He's doing the Napoleon movie also.
Ridley Scott.
That guy, yeah.
Holy shit! How could
I don't know why
Ridley Scott?
Yeah, that guy. His views on religion are.
Didn't he do Alien?
Yes.
Yeah. His views on religion are stupid.
Oh.
But he makes awesome movies.
I mean, Gladiator is probably my top 3 movie of all time.
Yeah.
It's one you stop and watch if it's on.
Every single time.
I can't turn it off. I freaking love it. But Kingdom of Heaven is like I get verklempt like every time I see that scene where he knights the bishop's assistant. Just making a man a knight, make him a better fighter. I get all. Yeah,
it's a great movie. It's a really good movie. I don't think it's as good as Gladiator, but it's a good movie.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
To all you kids out there, if it's just your first time listening to us, Brian and I are friends. And,
I was gonna say,
and believe it or not, we've been worse. So we'll be friends, and this show will be on next week. So,
Dre, I love you, man.
Yeah, I love you. Whatever.
But Gladiator's better than Kingdom of Heaven.
It's not. You're stupid.
No, Gladiator's much better.
I just wanted to take some of the tension that Dre and I had and just direct it at you for.
That's fine.
For no good, just to even it out.
That's fine. But, I mean, you were wrong when you did it, and you were wrong in doing it, and that's okay with me. I forgive you.
Was I?
You've been absolved, my son.
Okay.
So I imagine that this conflict's not going to end anytime soon.
Probably
not. We might bring it up again. I don't think we'll have an extensive discussion about it. But
our conflict.
No, I
thought you were talking about Israel and Palestine.
Israel and Palestine.
I'm calling the UN.
I think there'll be something in the news that pops up again, and we'll probably circle back to this, among other things that we circle back to.
The thing is, I mean, it's been going on our entire lifetimes, twice our lifetimes. But it's actually it's a pretty recent thing in human history. Like it could.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
I mean, and during Donald Trump's reign era, there was no problems in the Middle East. Nothing but peace in the Middle East.
He actually signed peace agreements not involving Palestine, which everybody that says that there's no way you're gonna get anyone to agree without involving Palestine, and the orange guy did it.
Right. He had the best deals.
I mean, the best. It's not what he says. It's what they say.
Don't take it from me. I know a lot of people. They're much smarter than me, and they all say it's the best.
Everyone says so.
This is the best agreement. The Abraham Accords. There's never been anything better.
You can ask anyone.
That's what they say, sir.
People often do.
They were huge.
And
this guy.
Would any of this be happening if Joe Biden wasn't president?
I mean, we can obviously say no.
Yeah, I'm glad we agree on that
because he is president. It's happening.
Mm-hmm. So it's all his fault.
But is he?
100%. It's exactly because of Bidenomics. I blame Bidenomics.
I blame Biden foreign policy and the fact that
who he's not going to send to go fix it? Kamala.
Well, as long as she can do it unburdened by what has been.
Because there's the things that have been and the things that haven't been.
Right.
And you have to be able to understand the things that have been, but not be burdened by them because the things are still going to happen.
I almost want to see like an alternate universe where she's sent to resolve it just to see the hijinks ensue.
I wish he would send her.
No, I don't want him to send her. I don't want
you don't want heaven to come down to earth and like the world to be over. Because that would probably be the most guaranteed way to make it happen.
Having her do anything is disastrous, but I just like I want to see a really realistic simulation of that.
I said that as a joke, but now that I've thought it through from an eschatological point of view, nothing could bring about the Edenic rebirth of the planet than sending Kamala Harris to go fix the Middle East right now.
Nothing faster, you mean?
Nothing.
Nothing.
I mean, it would be almost instantaneous.
So, as you can tell, we probably aren't big fans of her.
Yeah,
there would be trumpets, seals would be broken, and the earth would shake, and all kinds of. There'd be a dragon that would just show up.
I think would happen is that she would make such an absolute imbecile of herself that the United States would lose what respect we have left in the world.
No.
And
the world would recover. End. The world would end.
We would just recover. We always do.
There'd be like, lakes of blood, and like horses would show up out of nowhere with like dudes on them.
Famine. Lots of famine. And look, as a 250-pound dude, I don't want famine, man.
That's the worst thing. That's the worst thing.
Shoot me, dog. I don't want to be hungry. Nah.
Everybody be like, Dre, how'd you cut for your competition? Famine.
We sent Kamala Harris to the Middle East.
Dre's like, I've never been so lean.
These are abs, dog.
I'm svelte.
These are abs.
All right, boys. So, I think we beat this to death.
I think so too. I'm not sure we went anywhere. If
we went nowhere. Anything. We treaded water. We threw a couple of punches. Arms were crossed. Somehow. I shouldn't have said that.
No,
that was probably borderline racist. That'll get edited.
That's Marine Corps culture, man.
I'm editing that.
Just dub it. Just say something else.
Farouk the mouse, or whatever his name was. Farquhar. Farquhar the mouse was brought into this.
Yeah.
We just bringing it all. And you can catch us in all the places you listen to podcasts and YouTube. So, hey, listen, everybody, stay enlightened and stay curious, and we'll catch you next week.